Thank you, guys. So glad everybody is here. Let's see how this mic is working. Yeah, we said, this was billed as like film music and music of my own, and most of it will be, but I wanted to play a couple of things that weren't from films. One was based on a theme that I came up with. I also borrowed a kind of a traditional Irish, I guess it would be a reel that I kind of integrated into it. But it started out as a theme that I wrote called Irish Girl, which was inspired by my beautiful wife. PJ, you could take a little curtsy here. Oh my goodness. And yes, the love of my life. We're actually celebrating like 30 years, 1995. and now it's 2025. It's unbelievable. But anyway, the song Irish Girl came up. It's not from a film, and it's kind of an improvisation. I won't talk too much about it, but I'll play a little bit of it for you. Let's see what we got here. Good. Ugh. Now. So this was, tonight was also billed as, there was going to be a lot of film, and we have film clips and all this stuff, right? And that was not to a film, and it was also billed that it was going to be my songs or my themes or my music. But I wanted to play something that was not written by myself, and it was written by one of the people that was a great idol of mine, who was Dave Brubeck, who I ended up spending a day in a recording studio with back in the 90s, and you know, I came away from it saying, you know, I better learn one of Dave's tunes, and Blue Rondo Ala Turk was the one that I, you know, that I thought I might give a shot at, you know, but not to a film. And there will be a fair amount of talking tonight from me, hopefully not too much. And one thing that occurred to me was that I spent a lot of time in Scandinavia in the 80s. I know I'm taking a little bit of a left turn here, and they had, you know, you could be in a concert, say in Denmark, you know, or in Sweden, in Malmö, Sweden, or God knows, in Copenhagen. And if the guy performing, you know, the guy singing the songs, and if you started talking too much about how he wrote the song and where the song came from and who he was writing, his inspiration and all this kind of stuff, there would no doubt be some burly, kind of Viking-looking dude in the audience who would yell out in Danish the words, and I'll try the pronunciation, "Hold kæft og spil," which was like, hold kæft og spil, spil meaning play. And it basically meant shut up and play, you know. And you would hear it from time to time in these concerts, and somebody would yell out, "Shut up and play." You know, if the guy was going on too long, he's talking about his dog and talking about his girlfriend and talking about the inspiration for the song. So feel free at any time during this performance, if I start talking too much, just yell it out. So, with that being said, we'll give Dave a shot here. Thank you. You guys are great. So, on the film end, I've worked for years with, one of my closest friends in the world and in this lifetime, Abel Ferrara, who is, one of the, brilliant film auteurs internationally. And, we've been on like an amazing journey together through our lives, in the past years, the past over a decade, we've both been, we've taken on a new way of life, both, clean and sober guys for years now, both of us. And I think that as wonderful as things have been through this life and how productive and, the accomplishments that, especially Abel, he's made something in the order of 25 films or something, and I've scored most of them, right? So we've been on this journey that has gone, just the full gamut of, of behavior and everything else. Not to get too deeply into that, but it's important to the whole message that we have creatively and otherwise, right? But it's a name that you're going to hear throughout this performance because we've worked so much together and we've been so close and we've done so many things. So, people always talk about, I think the question that I hear most relative to working on film is, how does the process work? How do you guys do this, And we'll get into some of that, but that's just a little background, is that, most of the film stuff that we're going to show is stuff that I worked on with Abel, not all of it, because I'm really fucking old, man, and I have worked a lot. I've been doing this thing since I was like 14, and I've been busy doing it, and it doesn't matter, but the fact is that I've worked with other directors, but Abel is the cat. So you're going to hear the name, and we're going to hear from him later on, which is also a trip. But I thought we'd maybe start the film stuff up with a clip from King of New York. It's the opening sequence. You'll get a kick out of the fact that Lawrence Fishburne, who's now like Sir Lawrence Fishburne or something now, was Larry Fishburne back then. We knew him then. He was a young actor on this thing. So when you see his credit, I saw it today, it was like Larry Fishburne, that's how he's credited. And Wesley Snipes, there were wonderful actors in this thing, Christopher Walken, of course, and David Caruso and Jimmy Russo, it's really quite, so enough talk, I know, hold keeps the spill, and if Hudson could run this, so we go lights out, we're gonna run the opening section of King of New York.
Use this.
Nothing in my hand.
Yeah, that cheaper, making it feel like that. Cheaper, y'all. Well, let me tell you a little tale about BB the Pimp. Sucky MC trying to compliment. I rode around town in the car with pals. Trying to stick up a bar. Just said, boy, what was on your mind?
You know, and the reason that I show that clip is because kind of out of sequence with the other things that we're doing, but it truly is one of the films that I worked on that I'm happiest with, and it is a favorite of mine. And it's really a great film. I mean, if you could stream it, which I'm sure you can online, it's really worthwhile. King of New York is great, you know, and the process, you know, because we get back to people always talking about the process, and it's so collaborative doing this, you know, and it's also, you know, whatever work you do is always subject to approval, you know. It's not like you do something and you say, oh, this is really great. This is my best stuff, you know. It's in. It's not, you know. Somebody has to approve of it, and in the case of working with someone who really is an auteur director like Abel, and there are a few other great ones, although it's kind of a dying concept these days where there's one person who has final cut who says, that's it, it's in or it's out, right? So you're often working with committees, but it always is beholden to the powers that be, and it requires approval, always, 100% of the time. And that gets really tough, especially if you do something that you think is really great, and how can you do anything better, and you have to do something different. We went from King of New York, which really had a fair amount of success, as, you know, the local paper called these films cult films, which I don't know if it's a cult film or it's just, these are independent films. They were made on a lower end budget, although you could see the production of this was not a cheap film, but it was independent. So after this, Warner Brothers comes knocking on Abel's door, and with what would have been a third remake of Body Snatchers, of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and this is a big budgeted Warner Brothers film, and Abel always went to bat for me to hire me as a composer, and in this case they said, yeah, but this is Warner Brothers, and you just had to have certain criteria to get hired. They weren't going to hire me. And finally, and I did have an agent in California who said, well, what if you do a step deal? And it's like, what's a step deal? I said, well, we'll give you like half the money, and then you like write these demos, because we would always like do things in advance and try to get the approval of the music before you go to the final orchestrated versions of it, right? And we did that, and they gave us a step deal, and they gave me the deal, and it was a wonderful gig. And I started writing all these demos, and they put what's called a temp dub, which is a temporary dub of the film. So they take the film, they put in all these cues throughout the film, but they're demos, they're not the final thing at all. But they give an indication of what it might be, right? And these things were in, and everybody loved it. I was getting congratulations from everybody. They picked up my contract because that was the thing. It was based on what I did, and they picked it up, and it was all good. And about 2 months later, I'm out here in Montauk playing golf with my brother, a terrible game of golf, down in Wainscott, which is like the par 3 golf course, which is the best I could do. And we come back, and having smoked a big blunt on the way up, which I did in those days, so I'm just completely stoned, as you can imagine. And we get up to our little pad over on Lincoln, and the editor, Anthony Redmond, whose name you just saw, calls at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He goes, "Joey," and he has this taunting voice, "Joey, Joey," and I'm like, "What is going on, Tony?" He said, "Well, and he was in LA. He said there was a big screening at Warner Brothers, and all of the bigwigs of Warner Brothers were at the screening, and at the end of the screening, and I'm talking about the president of Warner Brothers stood up and wanted my head on a plate and was vocal about it. And so something in one of these cues that he hated, and he said, that has to change or this guy is fired. And this is what I'm talking about, approval and how tough this gig can be at times, because you think you're doing great, and if somebody doesn't like it, you might not be doing so great. But anyway, they said, okay, it was 6 o'clock in Montauk. You have to be on the Warner Brothers lot at noon tomorrow in LA, which meant getting sent right to Kennedy Airport overnight and on the lot at 12 noon, which I was. And they gave me the marching orders, and they also gave me the ultimatum. And so it was really about like coming up with something that would fly. And I said, okay, I better write a theme for this film because there had been no title theme. So I got back, and again, the demo, I'll play you how the thing evolved. And I think often the idea might come from something improvised, and I might flesh it out in an improvisation, and then try to turn it into a theme and variation and go from there. So it started with just a melody that So now, Hudson, if you'll run, so this was after I came up with that much. We started orchestrating it and putting it together and then recording it for the final, and luckily it kept me on the gig. So if we could just roll that, Hudson. So this is the opening of Body Snatchers. Yes, Body Snatchers. We had another clip. One of the things that I want to say about scoring is that you could take 20 different pieces of music and put them against screen, against a scene in a film, and you would get 20 different, kind of emotional responses to it, depending on what the music is, right? So it's very, it's very subjective stuff here, and it's happened so many times where, we would play counter to the picture, So you see a guy running down the street, and instead of doing a chase scene, you do a very slow, dreamlike cue. You play against picture, but music changes the emotional impact that the scene has. So we did a little thing. I did this at the library last year, where we Hudson, you could run the 4 clips. We did a film called Siberia a few years ago, which had Willem Dafoe in it, and it was based on some writings of Carl Jung. So this was like very cerebral, dreamlike kind of existential stuff. It wasn't light fare, right? And it was a very abstract film, but a really beautiful film and beautifully shot. And we had the opening scene, and we tried different things for it. So I made demos up of maybe 4 or 5 different things, and I have examples of maybe 3 things that were very different. And actually, I'm going to show 4, and they're only a minute long, so it's not like it's not that big a deal. But take a look and see what you think might have ended up in the final. And Hudson, you could run it. So it's just from Siberia. I have Mavush, which is the first one has more of kind of a mid-Eastern feel to it. The second one is actually a theme that we used in the film. Third one is with natural sound, which is just with wind and actual natural elements. And the other one is more of a broad kind of filmic theme. So we're going to kind of run them in sequence and see if it makes a point.
Ah
Thank you, man. So, yeah, so the choice actually, anybody have an idea, Francine? What do you think the choice take was? The first one, right? Actually, it was the third one, and it was that the director wanted to, and it was Abel again, and it was a beautiful panoramic scene that was, visually incredible, but he didn't want to put a big film theme to it. And he said, the natural sound should be the score to it, and I think that he was right. And it wasn't until maybe halfway through the first act of the film that we actually started putting score in. We had a lovely theme that kind of went like, which you heard a little bit. Perfectly well against this, and any number of pieces of music would have worked well. The next thing, we did a film called The Funeral. Blackout Drunks. The Funeral, Blackout Drunks. I'm trying to think. There's one more. And The Addiction. Yeah, there were four. This was somewhere back in the '90s. I did 4 scores in a row, which I think were kind of like typecasting for me. Maybe it was, God trying to give me a message here. The first one, it was The Addiction, Drunks, which had Richard Lewis in it, The Blackout, and then The Funeral. Like boom, 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 boom. And then I joined AA after that. But The Funeral was one, for some reason tonight, we've kind of focused in on this as a bit of a thing. Hudson, maybe we could run the trailer to the film first, just so you get kind of a vibe of what this movie was about. It was a gangster movie set in the 30s and in the Bronx or Yonkers or something. It was 3 brothers, and it's a tragic tale and a very, very good and beautiful film with, again, with Chris Walken and Chris Penn is in it. My old pal Annabella Sciorra is in it. Benicio del Toro. It's really a brilliant cast and a great film. And we did a lot of kind of song stuff, more than scoring. And it was a period piece. But run the clip. It has some scoring in it as well, so you can hear some of what we did.
Hey, Johnny! Johnny!
In a place of corruption,
We're just a bunch of street punks. Nobody's watching us.
we're free. In a time of change,
Every new idea, every movement forward was at one time or another criminal and outlaw.
3 brothers shared a dream of power.
It's a war, and it's costing both sides a great deal of money.
Sounds to me like you're trying to bust up the union.
One led,
What's our interest in this?
It's a good deal.
one followed,
We take the money.
one died.
You're really concerned about the workers. Let them take the deal.
Yeah, right.
You know what you're doing? You're looking for trouble.
From acclaimed director Abel Ferrara, America's most daring and controversial filmmaker,
I'm not asking for nothing, but my brother's killer, his motivation does not interest me.
Christopher Walken,
If I do something wrong, it's because God didn't give me the grace to do what's right.
Annabella Sciorra,
They're criminals, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing romantic about it.
Chris Penn,
Killed him. 22 years old, they killed him.
Isabella Rossellini,
You want to talk?
Benicio del Toro,
I had nothing to do with your brother's death.
and Vincent Gallo. Blood was their bond.
Killing somebody else is not going to bring him back.
Remember one thing, He's not your flesh and blood.
And the beginning of their end.
You can't be trusted. You are not trustworthy.
What would you have me do? Lie?
The Funeral.
Once you pull a trigger, there's no going back.
A film by Abel Ferrara.
Yeah, so the Funeral, what was I going to say about it? Oh, yeah, so Abel, I thought it would be nice if he, could do like a little video message and talk a little bit about, kind of how we work together or whatever. It's not too long, and it's kind of a handheld selfie kind of thing, so the audio is funky, and sometimes it's a bit unintelligible, but it's a kind of a glimpse into what he's like and what our dynamic together is. So I thought it would be good. And he talks a bit about, how we approach some of these things, which is in a very non-linear, unconventional way. We don't, again, everybody asks, well, what's the process like when you're doing music for film? And I think that the way we've worked for all these years is very different from many directors that I've worked for, where it's a very kind of linear, structured approach to things where music goes here, 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 and there. You do what they call a spotting session, where you watch the whole film with the director and the producers, and you have a stopwatch, and you take notes as to where the cue starts and where it ends and what it's supposed to be like and what it's supposed to feel like. And with Abel and myself, we never, ever do that. We do whatever works, and however we do it is not a traditional way of doing it. So we're going to run the clip of Abel, and it's a setup for a song that Chris Penn sings towards the middle of the film, or the end of the film. And check it out, and then we'll go right into the Chris Penn song. So it's all yours, Hudson. You got it, man.
Yo, hey everybody here, it's Abel. I'm here, I'm in room. Joey asked me, if I could add something to the show tonight. So I guess he's talking about the funeral, and how do we get that music? One thing, the funeral had a pretty big budget, for us at least, so we had a chance to buy the Gloomy Sunday by Billie Holiday, which was, quite a big buy. So, which left us with no other music, so we had to, as usual, come up with it ourselves. I remember the interesting thing about the theme of that film is, we were searching for it, and we were in the record, Joe and I were working, just alone, probably in the cellar of his house. And we put up the record, Gloomy Sunday, and Joey just played along with it as if he was, in that room, that day with that band. And it was strange, hearing, because it was a modern, obviously he was playing on a modern instrument. And, playing like organ and shit off the synthesizer. And, he played that track, and it, caught the soul of that track without, being a straight up ripoff, Then he played again. And, I don't know if he listening to it again or off of the one he did. But anyway, it was like a magic, man. It was beautiful. It was the theme of the movie, and that also captured the essence of that first song, not the essence, but the vibe of that first, that great Billie Holiday song. So, what else? I wrote a song there called Tonight Will Be the Night, and it was a sad song for me. Well, I wrote this before we did the movie. At that time, I had left I was married with 2 kids, and it was the night I split. I left home, basically. There's no soft pedal in it. you know, me and my wife separated, and there's always a moment when you leave, you know, and, you know, it's always in the middle of the night when everybody's sleeping, and, you know, I try to write something, capture that, and, I never quite got it right, but we had enough words for, you know, I played it for them, I played it for Jody, and I played it for Chris Penn, and, you know, Chris was always known for this song, and he loved it, and, you know, and I remember the day he was going to record it. You know, it was like, we were up in a bar up in Harlem, and it was lunchtime, and these guys were doing the final work. It's a beautiful moment on film. Everybody's in their wardrobe. We're on the set. It looked like it was 1934. You know, Joe had his band, Penn was singing it, and in that moment, I got the final words I was looking for, but I'm trying to rewrite it, and then Penn, like, because Penn grew up with his mother, who was a painter, and she was old, but she had a psychological problem. I mean, it's common knowledge. She was in and out of, like, institutions, and her constantly changing things that he loved drove him crazy. So when he saw me trying to rewrite this, I was changing things. He almost killed me. Anyway, but the end of it was, you know, again, about the night of it. So the end of that song for me was tonight. It will be the night. Okay, it goes like, the new verses were, I walk out of the room like I've done 1,000 times before. Pulling out the drive, keeping off the bright light. I've been looking up into the sky. I see my little Lucy saying goodbye. She's old enough not to cry. She knows enough not to cry. What's done can't be undone. Well, I got a few words wrong, but that's basically it. Anyway, love you guys. I hope to see you all soon.
So that's the lead up to Chris Penn singing the song, which is like a minute clip. We're getting through this. We've got a few more surprises up our sleeve, but first of all, it's been really a wonderful time here to see everybody, man. I know so many people in this house, and it's just, you know, the support. You know, I can't thank you guys enough for coming out. I know everybody. We got Al and Paula and Bob and Simon and PJ and my God and Cliff and Johnny, Jesus, Salvatore. Hudson, you want to run that Chris Penn? This is the great Chris Penn singing the song.
I'll be somebody's mood. Is it you or mine? Wow. Let the teardrops fall. Let your spirit shine. When you want it all. With me, I just want mine.
Right, and if you look closely, you'll see me on the right on the piano there. Anyway, we got this. There's a couple more things here. There was a song that was written. Nick St. John was the name of the screenwriter who worked with Abel for years and years, and I think some of the best films written were Nicky St. John and Abel Ferrara, and he was a brilliant guy who was there for, really for the main part of, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and through that. And on the funeral, there was a scene that we wanted to have a very mournful, sad song, almost a folk song, and I came up with the music on it. Nicky, who was very much the Italian, wrote a lyric in what was basically a Neapolitan dialect. And then my dear, beautiful dad, who is not a professional singer at all, but had this terrific, where he got the tenor from, and none of us kids got the tenor. He had the Italian tenor, and he had that nice vibrato at the top, and it was beautiful. And he came into the studio, and he sang the original version of this, and the original version is just so fantastic. I mean, I've had to listen to it, or I not had to listen to it, but I have listened to it a few times preparing for this. And the song is called Addio Amata Mia, which translates to Farewell, My Beloved. And I'll just read through some of the lyric to give you an idea of what it's like. It's saying, how sad this day of heartache. Even though the sun is shining, I'll never forget you. Farewell, my beloved. Then goes on to say, tonight is dark, so empty, the village so deserted. What lonely sadness. Farewell, my beloved. And then my soul, my heartbeat. I miss you so, my love. I wait for you till you come back to me when with the sun comes a strange peace, but another love cannot pierce this heart. You've been my life, my treasure, my reason for living. Addio, amata mia, farewell, my beloved. And I thought this would be, first of all, just in honor of the film, and really in honor of my dad, who was so wonderful, that it would be nice to try to replicate the song here in Italian. It was like, who could possibly do it? And a friend of ours named Lina Maxine, who's got to be waiting in the wings somewhere. Where's Lina? She came, come on out, Lina, and say hello. Lina came in, and she learned, first of all, I had the lyric translated from the Italian, from this dialect by a friend of ours that we know from Rome named Mary Ellen, who came in, and she was very good at translating, and she translated it, and then Lina learned the song. So I'm going to give it over to Lina, and I'll back you up on Addio amata mia.
Thank you, Joe.
Let me just get rid of this.
Okay.
Come trista sta giornata, puro sole montata, e non ti scordo mai. Addio, amata mia, stanotte così scura, sto paese abbandonata, che malinconia. Addio, amata mia. Anima mia, mi manchi tanto, amore. T'aspetterò fin quando non tornate. Addio, amata mia. Addio, amata mia. Addio, amata
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe.
Ain't that sweet,
Did
baby?
it.
Incredible.
Thank you, guys.
You know, we're going to play a couple more songs and I think and wrap it up. It was, how about Lina? That was just the, you know, man, that, I thought it was going to be a highlight for me. I wanted to bring out my friend, Jed. I wanted to kind of wrap this thing up with a couple of songs that I wrote, which has nothing to do with film or anything else. They're just my songs. And Jed Feldman was so kind as to come up, and he's going to play a little saxophone. And then after that, PJ and Lina are going to come out. We're going to sing Under the Montauk Moon. And I think Brad Beyer is going to come and play the introduction. And a nice 8-bar solo and the interlude, right? You got it. There he is, Brad. Do I see you? Take a little bow. Come on, dude. Yes. Okay, so this one is called Drunk's Way Home. And I would tell the story of it, but I'm afraid somebody's going to start yelling at me in Danish. So 1, 2. And I don't see Jed anywhere, so hopefully he's maybe he's waiting to make a big grand entrance. I'm not sure, but anyway, the song goes like this. Sitting here drinking my glass of beer, a same old bottle of whiskey, wondering what I'm doing here. My baby left me, she dropped me like I was a stone. Now it looks like I'll be taking the drunk's way home again tonight. A bottle of bourbon, a jig of rye. His bottom's up, baby, mud in your eye. You know she left me, she dropped me like I was a stone. Yes, it looks like I'll be taking the drunk's way home again tonight. Jukebox is playing our favorite song. I can't hear it anymore. And every time I think about what went wrong, I find myself staggering towards the door. They set him up, barkeep. Set him up nice and slow. I'm here for the long run. I got nowhere to go. Sometimes I feel like I got no direction, no. Yes, it looks like I'll be taking the truck's way home again tonight. Jukebox is playing our favorite song. I can't hear it anymore. And every time I think about what went wrong, I find myself staggering towards the door. So set 'em up, barkeep. Set 'em up nice and slow, Joe. I am here for the long run. I got nowhere to go. Sometimes I'll just feel like a rolling stone. Yes, it looks like I'll be taking the truck's way home again tonight. It looks like I'll be taking the truck's way home again tonight. Looks like I'll be taking the trunk's way home again tonight. Alrighty. Wow, Jed, sounded so great. What about you, dude? Don't you have a harmonica? You gotta be on the stage to do it. Okay, this is a song called Under the Montauk Moon, and we got Brad coming up. Boy, these guys really know how to make a cue. Where is PJ and Lina? Here we go, baby. Right here. Well, the northeast wind comes roaring down a mid-October night. They boarded up the storefronts and turned out all the lights. So I drove right past old Shagwell, let's call that Liar Saloon. And three guys outside looking for a fight tonight under the Montauk moon. surfers out at East End are waiting for a swell. Heart is revving east on 27 like they're headed straight to hell. And the locals hate all the idiots who come out in droves by June. The hand that feeds them really feels the bite tonight under the Montauk moon.
Baby, you're all that I need. Our love is holding the key. Baby, you're all that I want.
Aimless and immortal by the sea. Well, the winter's gonna be a cold one. They say the worst is yet to come. Well, people stocking up their pantries and loading up their guns. And darkness will fade and the sun will shine, and not a minute soon. Nancy Atlas, she'll be strumming that guitar with all her might tonight
Under the Montauk moon. Baby, you're all that I need. Our love is holding the key. Baby, you're all that I want.
Aimless and immortal by the sea. Bradley. Hawaiian sits on a bench looking vacant. He plays his ukulele well, and then some wealthy socialite comes by, and it's very hard to tell if she's really from old money or if her pedigree is just a game she plays for kicks to get her drinks and dinner free. Well, now Main Street's cold and empty, and not a soul around. Well, just a ghost of Andy Warhol, acting like he owns this town. And there ain't no 20-somethings listening to no memory motel tune. Not a living soul in sight tonight
under the Montauk moon. Under the Montauk moon. Under the Montauk moon.
Aimless and immortal by the sea.
That was so cool.